I hurriedly called my wife, but there was no answer. I was afraid that I might be reported as a suspicious person if I stayed here any longer, so I took my daughter and went back to my parents' house. Then, I called my wife so many times like crazy. Finally, my wife picked up her phone.
What is it? You're persistent.
Hey, what's going on? We have strangers living in our house.
Well, I sold the house.
What? What the heck did you do?
It's your fault. You neglected your chores. So, I divorced you 3 months ago and sold the house. I'll take the money from the sale of the house as compensation.
My name is George, and I'm a 34-year-old stay-at-home dad. I currently live with my wife Kate and my 5-year-old daughter Stacy. We built our own home after Stacy was born. We seem like a normal family to me. While there are parts of us that are happy, there are also parts that are not. My wife can be a bit morally abusive. She thinks she can make me do whatever she wants. She thinks she can make me obey her. When she comes home from work, she immediately asks for her meals and never takes away the dishes after she finishes eating. She has never washed the dishes. Then, she takes a bath, has drinks or snack as she pleases, and then she would take out the dishes again and leave them on the table. But when I tell her about it, she would say,
Who do you think is providing for you guys?
She would get really mad.
You don't work, so you have no right to complain.
She got angry with me. It's true that she works and supports our family financially. This is too unreasonable. Also, my wife is not cooperative at all in raising our child. When our daughter was a newborn, she would say,
She's so cute, she looks just like me.
But then, she gradually stopped taking care of her daughter. When our daughter grew up and asked her to play with her,
Mom is busy, so ask your daddy to play with you.
She would just say coldly. My daughter got sad every time, but eventually, she gave up and no longer wanted anything from my wife. I wonder if we are really happy. I couldn't stop sighing for some reason. Why do I keep cooking for such an unreasonable person? Will I continue to live my life like a housekeeper? As I was cooking with these thoughts in my head, the phone suddenly rang. I was cooking, so I couldn't answer it. My wife started saying,
What are you doing? Answer the phone.
If I argued with her, the phone would be cut off. I hurriedly washed my dirty hands and picked up the phone. It was Saturday night. Who could it be at this hour? I was surprised when the caller identified himself as a doctor. Then, the doctor said something that surprised me even more. Your mother has collapsed and has been rushed to the hospital. I almost dropped the receiver. My mother suddenly collapsed. The suddenness of the event made my mind go blank. Ever since I got married, I had visited my mother less and less often. My father had already passed away. I had wanted to visit her more often since then, but I had not been able to do so since my daughter was born. My mother had given me a lot of love and care. I still want to repay her. I don't want this to be the last time I say goodbye to her. According to the doctor's explanation, the cause was myocardial infarction. She was in a critical state when she was taken to the hospital, but now she was stable. I was relieved to hear that. She would be hospitalized and get checkups. I said, I'll be there, and got off the phone. I was the only child, and my dad passed away, so I'm the only family my mom had. I got ready as soon as I was off the phone. I told my wife that my mom was taken to the hospital, and that I needed to go there right away. She said,
What about my dinner?
I was just stunned. My mother has fallen ill, but she's more concerned about her own dinner? I expected her to be worried and offer to give me a ride or something. I don't have time for this. You should know that, I said rather loudly, and my wife was startled for a moment.
What's with that attitude?
She got mad at me as she always does. I thought I was wasting my time, so I got my daughter ready to go out and got in the car. My wife kept yelling at me, but I ignored her, and then we went to the hospital. My mother was asleep in the bed. I talked to her doctor. She will be hospitalized for tests, and we'll discuss various details after the results are obtained. It seems that she hit herself badly when she fell down. She has bruises on various parts of her body, so they needed to take a closer look at how the internal organs are affected. I was very anxious. I was worried. I was afraid that she would die. But the doctor, perhaps sensing my anxiety, said, "She's doing fine. She's in a stable condition and is just sleeping." He calmed me down by telling me that. Finally, the doctor informed me of her future plans. I took my daughter and went home. On the table was an empty beer can and an empty pizza box that she had ordered on delivery. I was disgusted when I saw them. My wife was asleep on the sofa with the TV on. I was so pissed off that I thought about waking her up, but I decided not to, as I was quite mentally and physically drained from what had happened to my mother. I was rather thankful that she was sleeping there now. I cleared the trash off the table. I turned off the TV and the lights. Then I told my daughter, "Shall we go out eat today?" And we decided to go to a family restaurant. My daughter is eating her dinner happily. I was thinking only about the future, so I brought the food I had ordered to my mouth. Is Mom going to be alright? Although her life was not in danger this time, it's quite possible that something similar could happen again. In such a case, I wondered if it would be alright that we didn't live near each other. But when I proposed to my wife that we live with my mother, I am sure she would reject the idea. Still, for the sake of my mother, my only blood relative, I had to tell her what I want. The next day, I decided to talk to my wife about it. I told her that my mother was hospitalized and for some tests. And, depending on the results, I would like her to move in with us so that I can keep an eye on her. And my wife said,
Absolutely not.
She answered right away. I had expected this, but I didn't think she would reject my proposal so quickly. Why not?
This is my house, and I don't want to make it uncomfortable for me.
That's terrible. I'm not saying I want to live with my mom under normal circumstances. I'm saying I want to live with her in case she needs nursing care or something. Besides, this is my house too.
I said no. I'm the one working and paying the bills now, so I have the right to make the decision.
I had no idea that my wife was such a clueless and selfish woman. She may be the one who pays the bills, but I'm the one who is taking care of everything in this house. I distrust my wife more than ever. Then a few days later, I went to the hospital to get the results of the tests. I heard that my mother had a bad back. She was going to be hospitalized for a while, and after she was discharged, she was going to be in need of nursing care. I was at a loss. After all, my wife had just told me that I would never be able to live with her. And now that she needs nursing care, I didn't know what to do. Then, my mother said, "I'm sorry. I've put you through a lot of trouble." She apologized to me regretfully. Seeing my mother's sad face, I realized what I had to do. What I need to take care of now is my mother. I don't care what my wife says for now. It's okay, Mom. Don't worry. I told her and took her hands. I'm going to do everything I can for her. I swore to myself. Then I told my wife several times that my mother needed care and that I wanted her to move in with us so that I can take care of her. But she refused every time. I had no choice. I'll go back to my parents' house and take care of my mother for a while. I told her, but...
You should have done that from the beginning. Don't make it any harder.
She got mad. I was extremely angry. I got permission to go back to my parents' house. So after my mother was discharged from the hospital, I decided to go back. I couldn't leave my daughter at home, so I took her with me and went back to my parents' house. When my mother was discharged from the hospital, I went to pick her up. She was very sad because she had to get into a wheelchair. I'm sorry I put you through all this. It's because my mother has a strong sense of responsibility. I guess she doesn't want to cause trouble for others. But I'm her son. I don't want her to hold back. It's okay. From now on, the three of us will enjoy spending time together. Thus began my mother's care at my parents' house. When I entered the house, my mother tried to serve tea for me. I hurried to stop her. Mom, don't try to do everything by yourself. From now on, you can depend on me more. I'm sorry. Thank you. I was a little sad again. Then,
I'll make some tea,
my daughter said cheerfully. Me and my mom were at ease at once. The three of us ended up making some tea and getting sweets together. We were having such a peaceful and pleasant time. That night, my wife called me out of the blue. Hello? What's up?
Hey, where are you?
What? I was astonished. What the heck is she talking about? Well, I told you I'm going to start taking care of my mom at home today. Didn't I? Then my wife said something outrageous.
What? You didn't tell me you were staying over. What about my meals, my laundry, my bath? Just come home and do it.
That's impossible. She must think I'm her housekeeper or something. I told you I'm going home for a while. You're an adult. You can do the housework by yourself.
Don't be silly. Come home soon. I didn't give you my permission to stay at your parents' house.
I can't take care of her without staying here. It takes 3 hours by car from here to our house. Anyway, I'm going to stay at my parents' house with our daughter for a while. With that, I hung up the phone. I was completely fed up with my wife. Then began a life of taking care of my mother. My mother used to cook for me when I was a child. Now, I cook for her. At first, it was hard to get used to it. I was happy to be able to live with my mother for the first time in a long time. My daughter was also happy to be able to spend time with her grandmother. My mother can't play with my daughter, but she listened to my daughter's stories all the time, so my daughter was very close to her. It's been a while since then. My wife didn't contact me since that day. I thought it was surprising, but I would have preferred not to hear from her, so I didn't contact her either. One day, after about 3 months of living like that, my mother's condition got worse. I took her to the hospital immediately. The doctor said her back has gotten pretty bad. He also said that the muscles in her legs were also weakening. He told me that she needed to stay at the hospital, so I agreed. I wanted to make a choice that would improve my mother's condition as much as possible. I immediately arranged for her to be hospitalized. I brought my mother's change of clothes and other things from my parents' house. I told my mother that I would come visit her every day. I went home with my daughter for the first time in a while. But as soon as I arrived home, I noticed something strange. First of all, an unfamiliar car was parked. I was so disgusted with my wife that she bought a new car when I was taking care of my mother. I decided to complain about this. I tried to get into the house by putting the key through the lock in the front door. The key wouldn't fit. What the heck? What's going on? No matter how many times I tried, the house key wouldn't fit. It's not the wrong house, is it? I looked at the exterior of the house impatiently. It looked like the house my wife and I had built. But I was surprised to see the nameplate. There was a complete stranger's name on it. My mind went blank. It had been 3 months since I had started living in my parents' house to take care of my mother. Did my wife sell the house during that time without my permission? I hurriedly called my wife, but there was no answer. I was afraid that I might be reported as a suspicious person if I had stayed here any longer. So I took my daughter and went back to my parents' house. Then, I called my wife so many times like crazy. Finally, my wife picked up the phone.
What is it? You're persistent.
Hey, what's going on? We have strangers living in our house.
Well, I sold the house.
What? What the heck did you do?
It's your fault. You neglected your chores. So, I divorced you 3 months ago and sold the house. I'll take the money from the sale of the house as compensation.
I didn't understand what my wife meant. What on earth was she talking about? Wait a minute. What do you mean we're divorced?
It means that I have already filed for divorce. It means that we are strangers. Don't ever contact me again.
With these words, my wife hung up the phone. I panicked. What does it mean? I had not signed any divorce papers. How could she divorce me? I took a deep breath to calm myself down for the time being. As I recall, forging divorce papers is a crime. I rushed to a lawyer's office and asked for advice. He told me that it was indeed a crime to forge a divorce decree. I explained the situation and asked the lawyer to help me. It seemed suspicious to me that my wife would do this without my permission, so I decided to investigate this point as well. I asked for an investigation by a detective agency. For about a week, the evidence of my wife's infidelity came out easily. My wife apparently thought she divorced me, so she was seeing her lover without hesitation. I sent a certified letter to her workplace demanding divorce and alimony, along with the evidences of her infidelity. I also accused her of forging the divorce papers. My wife immediately contacted me.
Hey, what are you doing? Don't send anything strange to my office.
It's not something strange. It's official document, unlike the one you forged.
Forgery? I filled out the divorce papers with your stamp, so there is no problem. So, you and I are divorced and I am not an adulterer.
I couldn't believe her. If you want to think that way, you can think that way all you want. But I'm going to charge you compensation, and I filed a police report against you and your lover for forgery of divorce papers.
Oh, no. The police?
Oh, of course. I'm going to ask for compensation as well. Let's talk about the rest through a lawyer. With that, I hung up the phone. My wife must have been very upset. I heard that she had been arrested for forging divorce papers. Naturally, she was fired from her job. She had to pay a fine for the arrest, compensation, and alimony. In addition, I demanded a share of the property through my lawyer. I was able to get half of the money from the sale of the house. When we bought the house in the first place, I had paid out good amount of money from my savings. I should be able to get that much money back. We were thus successfully divorced. Fortunately, My daughter and I had my parents' house. I asked my mother if we could live there, and of course she said yes. After that, my daughter and I frequently went to visit my mother, and we were getting along well with each other. Then, about a month after the divorce, my ex-wife suddenly came to my parents' house. She was in shambles and not a shred of cleanliness. When she saw me, she got down on her knees with tears streaming down her face.
I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please forgive me, and please give me another chance.
To my surprise, my ex-wife began to tell me what had happened after the divorce. My ex-wife, who was penniless, started to look for a job and took a day job. She said that her lover took all her money. She couldn't pay the rent and has managed to maintain her house by borrowing money. However, she is unable to pay her living expenses.
Please, I'll break up with him, so take me back. You do the housework and I'll earn the money.
It felt really good to see her in such a bad shape, but she had to stop coming over here. How are you going to support us now? I don't want to have to start over again with a morally abusive wife, even if I get paid for it. Get the hell out of here. I'm officially done with you. If you ever come here again, I'll call the police. She was afraid of the police.
I never want to get arrested again.
She left in a hurry. I don't think she'll be coming back. Since I was able to get a new job, I decided to move to an apartment near the hospital where my mother is hospitalized. Now I live in a new and beautiful apartment with my daughter. I am spending happy days visiting my mother at the hospital. Selling the house without permission is just impossible. It is also crazy to forge divorce papers. I am glad that he got rid of such a horrible woman. I know it must be hard to work while worrying about your mother's illness and raising a child, but I wish him the best. Thank you for watching. How did you like today's story? Please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next story.